all, regardless of race, religion, gender, age, disability, or any other grounds of discrimination. I'd like to point out on the here in the Assembly room, also on Zoom and live feed, if we can have that screen put up, please. I do see it in front of me here. Just a reminder that this code of conduct identifies the standard of behavior expected of all event participants, as well as the consequences of unacceptable behavior. It applies to all AFN events and event-related activities, not just here in the Assembly room. All event participants, including registrants, speakers, staff, volunteers, observers, guests, the media, and all others are expected to help us maintain a positive event experience for everyone. So just to be mindful, the idea is respect of each other, to respect those in the room, those beside you. And it's very important that we maintain that very important aspect of signing the oath that everyone was presented with at registration. So with that, miigwech for that recognition. I will hand it over to my colleague, Veronique Picard, in just a few seconds when she's ready to come up with some further housekeeping announcements. Miigwech kudinawa, iwe ga bizdamik, egumina iwe ga wi piminjahamik iwe gwayak, jibmodoyak we mawachidon. So I'll turn it over to Veronique.
Hi everyone. Today, December 3rd, is International Day of Persons with Disability. So for this, and as usual, we want to invite Marsha Ireland for a quick tutorial. Marsha is on her way up.
Sagoli, hello. Today we observe the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, recognized annually on December 3rd. This year's theme is amplifying the leadership of persons with disabilities for an inclusive and sustainable future. Persons with disabilities are important members of our families and communities. We are mothers, fathers, uncles, aunties, brothers, sisters, elders, seniors, community partners, and community leaders. To honor this day, we encourage our relatives to help amplify the leadership of First Nations persons with disabilities by including youth, sisters, brothers, seniors, and others with disabilities in your circles and ensuring they have a voice in decision-making processes. We are stronger together when First Nations persons with disabilities are supported and empowered to access care, services, and benefits on an equal basis with each other. The 7th generation teachings of the Haudenosaunee peoples reminds us of the importance of building strong, supportive relationships with one another. They remind us that the decisions we make today can contribute to creating a sustainable and inclusive world for the next 7 generations. Let us carry forward these teachings and champion inclusion and accessibility in every decision we make. Together, we can ensure these values lead our work from the start and build a brighter future for all. Yanko, thank you.
Can you turn on Debbie's mic?
Tehum Dagwegum Dayan Mugets, Oneida Nation, Turtle Clan. I will share with you a few Oneida signs as well as ASL signs. So Sagoli, Sagoli. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Hello. Yonko. Thank you. Applause. To give applause. And with that, I say Yonko.
Nyawangoa. Thank you. I will hand it over to Cedric.
Good morning, everyone. Again, maybe a final call for those who are in the grand entry to please join in the behind of the room. We see our flag carriers are lining up, so if you can enjoy them. For now, I just want to make a quick word. There's a new thing this year that's going to be happening, and that is electronic voting. So the AFN and their team have created a platform to try and make it simpler for chiefs and proxies to be able to proceed in the vote and maybe also make things a little faster. So you should have received an email with a 6-letter code. That's going to be the key to access the voting platform. So if ever chiefs or proxies haven't received this yet, please talk either to people at registration or within the room. There will be people with light blue, sky blue lanyards around at distribution here to help. And again, this is the way that we will be voting throughout the assembly, so you do absolutely need this 6-letter code. Other than that, we'll wait on our grand entry to be prepared, and we will be starting the assembly very soon. Thank you.
Hey, Cedric, did you guys get an updated agenda where Anita?
Miigwech. Good morning, everyone. Once again, we are just setting up for the grand entry. So if there are any chiefs or proxy representatives, if you wish to participate in the grand entry, that is just being arranged and set up in the back. As soon as I get indication that they are ready, I will call on the drum to open the session. Miwege dojgadek wenogum kawi pakengadek kwayek dojgadek kwayek pakengadek jawendagak we mawachidon when sigijiga ogmakanak magawi mawachidot. So I'm just waiting again for indication that the group is ready for the grand entry. While we are doing that, I'd like to introduce the host drum for the next 3 days. As I look to the back of the room and wait for indication that the delegation is ready. So I'd like to introduce the host drum Spirit Wolf Singers. Once we proceed with the opening, the Spirit Wolf Singers will be rendering 3 songs. We'll have the grand entry song, we'll have the flag song, and the veteran song. The delegation will enter the assembly room, and then the flags will be posted. We got some confirmation that that will be the protocol for this assembly. So we will have the 3 songs, the flags will be posted, and we will invite our elder knowledge keeper to come up and open with a prayer. So again, we're good to go? No, we're not good to go. I just got the cue to check my messages. That was the cue that I got. So we probably need another, I'm told we need another few minutes. So thank you for your patience. Miigwech kajajibendamik. And again, thank you to the drum, Spirit Wolf Singers. Of course, we will get into this in the opening protocols, but we'd like to acknowledge the host community, Pequot Nagon, and I believe that is where I'm not sure if that's where the drum group would consider home, but that is the host nation for this assembly. Sometimes I like to speak in my language. I often say it keeps me grounded as to who I am as an Anishinaabe person. So just introducing myself again. I will do so once we get, I will formally introduce myself. My colleagues, co-chairs will also formally introduce themselves once we get started into the assembly. A couple of reminders. We do have 3 co-chairs. We have a youth co-chair. We also will have a member of the Knowledge Keepers Council. So we will have one of the elders here sitting with us to help moderate the discussion over the next 3 days. Also, we got a reminder this morning, and we will get into the details. Something new that's being tried at this assembly is electronic voting. We're all aware the traditional system, or in the past, has been voting by raising your lanyard by show of hands. So at this assembly, this will be the first time we are trying the electronic voting. Of course, we've done electronic voting through the Zoom sessions that we had during the pandemic, during COVID, and then we turned into hybrid sessions. So of course, this is a hybrid session. We are meeting here in person, but we also have registered chiefs and proxy representatives online on Zoom, and we've done the electronic voting in that way. But this will be the first time that everyone will be voting electronically. So once you registered as a chief or proxy representative, you were given information on how to log in to the electronic voting. We'll go through that process just to make sure. We'll do a test run to make sure that everybody's familiar. We are aware it's a new process. There will be some growing pains. We will iron out any kinks that arise. But everybody should have gotten an email. There is a passcode, a 6-digit passcode that you would have received in the email. What you do is you copy that passcode, you click on a link, and it takes you to a site specific for you. And once you're in that site, if you leave it open on your device, either a phone, a tablet, laptop, once you have activated that site, it stays open, and you will be able to vote throughout the day. We are working on some things that possibly there will be reminders, but when it comes time to vote, we will announce the vote is open. The vote on that particular issue, whether it's a motion or a resolution, that will be opened up. And you vote either in favor of the resolution, against the resolution, or you abstain from the resolution. The results will be tabulated, and we get the results, and we will announce any results to any motions or resolutions. Just going through that process, we will explain it again, but while we are waiting for the delegation in the back, I am going to give them a little bit of encouragement to start the process. We can get ready, please. Just waiting on our team to advise that they are ready. But we would like to get underway with the assembly as soon as we can. Back to the voting, the electronic voting. Everybody will receive an email. You have a 6-digit code. You use that to enter. You will be at that site. If for any reason you shut down that site or you close your that particular page, you can go back on, go to the email, punch in your 6-digit code. You can just copy and paste, copy it, enter the code, and you will see the resolutions that you will be voting on. There is only one open at a time. We will announce when it will be opened, when it's time to vote, and we will announce when it'll close. So we'll be going through a test vote just to make sure everybody is familiar, and then we will get into it, starting with the motions to accept the rules of procedure and the agenda. I will also be mentioning this. This is totally accounted for. This is can be done within the current rules of procedure that we have, and it is doable. It can be done. There is some discretion on how we conduct our voting for in-person assemblies, as well for hybrid assemblies and virtual assemblies. There was that change already made to accommodate electronic voting. So just so that we're all aware.
For now, we'll just maybe take a pause for a second. I think we're almost ready.
So we will pause. We will be back very shortly to start with the grand entry. Welcome back. For those in the room, for those that are able to stand, I will ask you to rise, please. We will now turn it over to the Spirit Wolf Singers. They will be rendering 3 songs, the Grand Entry Song, the Flag Song, and the Veteran Song. We will now start with the Grand Entry.
Hey!
Miigwech. Thank you very much to the host drum, the Spirit Wolf Singers, for opening and rendering 3 songs, the Grand Entry Song, the Flag Song, and the Veteran Song. We now call on the Eagle staffs to be posted, as well as the flags. Before we proceed with the opening prayer, all participants in the Grand Entry are invited to return to your seats, and we will proceed. I will hand it over to my colleague, Veronique.
Thank you. Merci for the Grand Entry. Before anything, we would like to acknowledge that our feet are standing at the moment on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. And to start our day well, and our assembly well, I would like to welcome and introduce Elder James Chartrand for the opening prayer. And I would like to invite everybody to stand for the prayer.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. My name is Jane Chartrand, Christian name. My spirit name is Anangush Nibikwe, Starwater Woman, and I'm an elder from Pigwaknigan and a matriarch of my family. We are here together as our ancestors wanted us to be. So when we are in our speaking to each other, let us be respectful so we do not shame our ancestors. We need to talk to each other. There's many people here today, and we welcome you all from many nations, and it is my honor to be able to say this opening prayer. I used to apologize because I could not speak my language, but I am learning it. So I will say to you what I feel is appropriate for today in English. Excuse me. Kichimanadu, I speak to you from the Turtle Clan. I wish to thank Grandfather Sun for bringing the light from the darkness. I wish to thank Grandmother Moon. She is the night sun. I wish to thank you for the pristine waters that we all share. It is most precious, and we will protect it. I wish to thank you for the standing people. They too are so important to us, and we honor them as they stand high above us. I wish to thank you for the Rock people. They hold our history. Every nation's history, you can find it with the Rock people. They do not speak, they show us. We wish to thank you for the winged ones, the birds, the ones that fly. We wish to thank you for the swimmers, the finned ones. We wish to thank you for the four-leggeds. They forage in the forests, and if we follow them and be respectful, they take us to where the medicines grow. We wish to thank you for the two-leggeds, the ones that can see and hear and feel and speak. We are the people. We engage with each other. We ask you, Gichimanadu, to look over this gathering of our leadership, of our chiefs, our knowledge keepers, our women, our children, and our grandmothers, grandfathers. We ask this, for we are the people of the land. Miigwech.
Miigwech, thank you, Elder Jane Chartrand, for the opening prayer. I would now like to invite Chief Greg Sarrazin to provide our welcoming remark. He's from the Algonquin Nation of Pequot-Kanagan.
Kwekwe, Pajashin, hello and welcome. My name is Greg Sarrazin. I am the Chief of the Algonquins of Pequot-Kanagan First Nation. Thank you, Elder Chartrand, for that opening prayer, and thank you, Spirit Wolf, for that entry. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you here today to this 2024 Assembly of First Nations Special Chiefs Assembly being held here on the banks of the great river of the Algonquin Nation, the mighty Kitchissippi, which is in the heart of unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin territory. When European cultures first came up the mighty Kitchissippi into our Algonquin homelands in the 1600s, the Algonquin Nation was here, occupying and defending our homelands, where we have been since time immemorial. We are still here in 2024, and we will continue to be here for the next 7 generations and beyond. Where we are today, at the confluence of the Kitchissippi River, flowing west to east, and the Rideau River flowing in from the south, and the Gatineau River flowing in from the north, is the meeting place of the Algonquin Nation. Throughout millennia, we have welcomed many nations here to conduct trade and to make alliances. And today, we welcome all of you here to undertake the important work that we all share, and which is of the utmost importance to all our nations across Turtle Island. I would like to pause for a moment and acknowledge the truth of our collective past so that we can be reminded of what needs to be resolved and reconciled as we move forward in this time of truth and reconciliation. I want to acknowledge all of our First Nations residential school victims, like my childhood friend, my Uncle Joey Commanda, who never made it home. He died while escaping from that terrible residential school, the Mush Hole. That was in 1969, and he was only 13 years old. I also want to acknowledge all of those residential school survivors who did make it home, like Joey's brother Rocky, and all of the others who did make it home and whose lives were forever changed by that terrible experience. I acknowledge our missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and the work being undertaken to address that terrible legacy and to put an end to it once and for all. I acknowledge all of the 60 Scoop survivors who were taken from the cradle and denied their families, their culture, and their heritage. Those are just some of the injustices perpetuated upon us, which we have survived. But yet we cannot forget them as we continue to build our future and to ensure that our nations flourish. Today, the Algonquin Nation consists of my First Nation, the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation, located south of the Kitchissippi in present-day Ontario. And our Algonquin brothers and sisters First Nations are north of the Kitchissippi in present-day Quebec. I acknowledge their leadership, their chiefs, their council members, many of them who are in attendance here today. And I want to acknowledge all First Nations across Turtle Island. Welcome, National Chief Cindy Woodhouse, Nepinak. Welcome, Ontario Regional Chief Abram Benedict. And welcome all regional chiefs, grand chiefs, chiefs, councillors, elders, traditional people, our drummers and dancers, citizens of all of our nations, and our technicians working hard to help us to further our agenda. On behalf of the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation, I am happy to welcome all of you here today to the unceded, unsurrendered traditional homelands of the Algonquin Nation. May the Creator protect you and keep you and your families safe. Miigwech. Thank you.
Miigwech, Chief. I would now like to invite Ontario Regional Chief Abram Benedict to provide the territorial welcome.
Good morning, Ani, bonjour, Sego. What's going on? Good morning to all of you. It's a great pleasure to bring welcoming territorial remarks to all of you. I want to acknowledge Chief Sarzan for the words that he shared this morning, as well as acknowledge our elder Chartrand on the prayer and setting the tone for the work that we have to do, as well as acknowledge the drum, all the sacred items that are here today as we set out for 3 days of the work that we have to do here at the Assembly of First Nations in the unceded territory of the Algonquins. I want to say good morning to all of our chiefs, all of our grand chiefs. So happy to see so many of you here as we travel to the territory, the Algonquin territory in the city of Ottawa, to participate in the 3 days that we have. Members of our executive have been working hard over the last couple of days to make sure that our agenda is set, that our resolutions are coming forward, that sets the mandates for us and the work we do at the AFN, as well as the work that we do in the regions. I want to say that, as we bring in our deliberations, our presentations, our dialogue on the many issues that impact so many of us, but also to talk about the opportunities, talk about those areas of the great things that are happening in many of our nations. I know that the elders set a tone for us this morning, and I know that the times that we live in as people, as Anishinaabe, as Haudenosaunee, as Ungahuma people, the original people, the world around us is different. It's such a different world we live in, the challenges that we face. And so many of our people have faced that for so long. The Chief has talked about our survivors, our women, atrocities that we have faced and our people have faced in so many areas, and we continue to move forward as nations, as people. And I look forward to the dialogue today and the constructive dialogue, but also talking about the opportunities that exist in many of our nations, in our regions, here in Turtle Island, and the work that each and every one of you do every day to protect your nationhood, to ensure that the services are available to your community. I know there's many challenges, there's many opportunities, but those little children in our communities, those that are not born yet, they know no different. They don't know how difficult it is in the world that surrounds them. I want to commend each and every one of you, all of our members, all of our elected councils, all of our chiefs, all of our technicians, all of those who continue to work day in and day out to ensure that you are protecting your nations, doing the best that you can to serve. And so I want to say miigwech yamago for the opportunity to share welcoming remarks as we kick off our 3 days here in the region, in our territorial lands. And I look forward to dialoguing, presenting, talking about the great things, the challenges. Yes, they're great. And as we move forward the next 3 days, we'll hear a number of presentations of various areas that impact all of our people, impact our nations, impact our identity, impact the work that you do from service delivery to jurisdictional protections. And so with that, I want to say miigwech yamagoa, and I look forward to the next 3 days as well as seeing all of you in July 16, 17, and 18 in Winnipeg, where Regional Chief Willie will be hosting us. I know that's a ways out there, but that'll be the next time after our 3 days here that we get together. So miigwech yamagoa, enjoy the next 3 days. Yawa.
Thank you, Regional Chief. I now call the meeting to order. J'appelle maintenant la séance à être officiellement ouverte.
And the Assembly is officially opened.
I would like to invite National Chief Cindy Woodhouse Nepinak for the opening remarks.
Anin. Thank you for being here this morning. I want to just say welcome, and I want to start by acknowledging that we are gathered on the unceded ancestral territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. I would also like to thank and acknowledge Chief Greg of the Algonquins of Pikwaktagan and Chief Jean-Guy Waitak of the Kitigan ZB Anishinaabe for welcoming us to your lands, and of course the Ontario Regional Chief, Abraham Benedict, for your inspiring words this morning and for welcoming us to your beautiful territory. I also want to thank Chief Monias's granddaughter for leading us in this morning. I think that that's so important that children lead this assembly and that we think of them and every time we make decisions and as we think ahead. So I want to thank that little sweet girl for leading us in, as well as Easton, whatever Easton is, but thank you. You're the future, and very soon this entire assembly, you're running it, and in a blink of an eye. So I want to acknowledge and also hold up the host drum. Thank you so much, Spirit Wolf Singers. Thank you to the Algonquin singers, and thank you to the Algonquin elder, Jane Chartrand, for opening this assembly in a good way. The Eagle staffs and all the ceremonial items. I want to also thank Cheyenne and Leonard for starting us off this morning at pipe ceremony. We are pleased and honored to welcome each of you, all chiefs, council members, elders and proxies, media, and all of you for joining us this week here at the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly. It's great to see so many in attendance this week. We've had unprecedented high attendance at our July Assembly in Montreal on the unceded territory of the Kanawake Nation, and at the Special Chiefs Assembly in Treaty 7 territory in Calgary near Sotena First Nation, with high levels of participation and enthusiasm. It's great to see the Assembly of First Nations alive and well and so full of passion, and for the right reasons. We are unified behind a common belief that First Nations families must be empowered to care for our own children. Just moving on, I think when I look back 1 year ago this week, chiefs gathered here in this building to elect a new national chief. And the convention center closed down at midnight that day because we were voting so much. So I want to lift up the other candidates at that time: Dean Sayers, Reg Belrose, David Pratt, Sheila North, and Craig Mackinac for stepping up last year and for putting your names forward. It was a difficult time for our assembly, and stepping forward is not always easy, and so I lift you all up. Being elected as your national chief 1 year ago, it was a great honor, and I continue to be grateful and humbled by your support, and I will not take that for granted. So before I start today, I want to thank my own family for your support over the past year. Their lives have changed too. I know my dad's in the building, my mom's at home, but I want to thank my parents, Garnet and Lorette Woodhouse, for your love, for your kindness, for always being there for me and my 4 big brothers. I grew up in a house of men and boys, right? And I want to thank my brothers, Curtis, my partner, for being such a great father to our kids, and to Kyler, Colt, and Jade, who are at school today, for inspiring me every day to work hard, and for putting up with my absence, and for loving me every time that I get home. My kids are the greatest thing that any one of us can have. We're so blessed when we have our children. So I want to thank the AFN Executive Committee, chiefs across this country, the Assembly of First Nations staff and supporters for your leadership during this first year. We are so thankful for your hard work, for your advice, for your patience. Excuse me. And I can't think of a better way than to be here 1 year later, than to be here with all of you this week. I know we have a lot of work to do. In addition to the resolutions from the Chiefs in Assembly, my first year as National Chief has been guided by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action. I would like to take a few moments to talk about the calls to action today, which is impossible to do without thinking of the late Justice Murray Sinclair. Throughout his life, his name his family shared with us was Mazina Gizik Iban, the one who speaks of pictures in the sky. He committed his life in service to our people, creating change, revealing truth, and leading with fairness. When we heard about his passing last month, First Nations from coast to coast to coast were devastated. Justice Sinclair was not only a tremendous advocate for the rights of First Nations, he was a transformational force in the pursuit of reconciliation. His leadership brought us this far in the reconciliation journey. His passion and grace will continue to inspire generations to come. Justice Sinclair's work as the chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission brought Canada's shameful colonial history to the forefront of this nation. As a First Nations woman growing up in Manitoba, Justice Sinclair changed our lives. He was and remains a beacon of hope for all of us. After the death of J.J. Harper and the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry, he showed us what was possible, and now it's up to all of us to see it through. If Justice Sinclair was here today, and I believe he is, he may ask us, have you been good in life? Have you been a good relative? Have you thought about the next generation? Have you done what was needed? Because he wanted us to be good relatives to each other and to the next generation. So that is what we must all do. Excuse me. The 94 calls to action are guiding principles for legislation, for funding and policies that will continue closing the gap between First Nations and non-First Nations Canadians for the next century. With the 10-year anniversary of the calls to action in 2025, we will measure progress towards reconciliation, hold governments accountable, and invite leaders to renew their support for survivors, families, and First Nations across Turtle Island. With the calls to action and resolutions from chiefs, we have been guided over the first year by the calls for justice and the public inquiry into the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And it is hard to talk about this issue without thinking of so many great leaders that have come before us, who have been fighting for our mothers, our sisters, and aunties and for so many years. This includes people like Grand Chief Kathy Merrick, the late Grand Chief Merrick, another great leader that we lost in the past couple of months. And I can't think of, the late Chief Tanya Bittern and many others who had left us all too soon, as well as another late friend of mine, and I just think of all of them, as well as in Saskatchewan, they've lost a leader. So in September, with Grand Chief Merrick's passing, she passed away so suddenly on the steps of a Manitoba courthouse. We couldn't believe it, and we still can't believe it. First Nations lost a legendary matriarch. Canada lost a one-of-a-kind leader. We all lost a trusted friend, mentor, and role model. And with Justice Sinclair, we honor his life by redoubling our work to end violence against First Nations women and girls. At our annual General Assembly in July, chiefs were united in the call for an independent commission of inquiry into the deaths of the sisters Rebecca Comtois, Rebecca Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Buffalo Woman. It was an issue Grand Chief Merrick fought so relentlessly for, and in her final days and months. Excuse me. We also lift up our First Nation Premier Wapkinew and his government for their leadership and showing the best of his province. Yesterday, the Premier provided us with an update on the landfill search. The 4th stage of that work is now underway. So today I want to send our love and support to those families and of course to the Premier as he navigates that important issue. And I again want to repeat our call for an independent inquiry into the response of the Winnipeg Police Department and the previous provincial governments regarding their decision in these cases, particularly as it relates to not searching the local landfill. In fact, many of the calls for justice that remain incomplete relate to policing, another issue we have spent a lot of time during our first year. At July's annual General Assembly, Canada's Public Safety Minister talked about his mandate to quickly introduce federal legislation that recognizes First Nations policing as an essential service and includes long-term, stable, and recurring funding. 5 months later, there is no essential service legislation, and our jurisdiction continues to be ignored. Instead, the media has reported that 9 First Nations people have died since August following police interactions. Jack Peach, Haas Lightning Saddleback, Tammy Bateman, Jason West, Danny Knife, Stephen Dedman, Ronald Skunk, Joseph Desjarlais, and sadly there have been more. At the Special Chiefs Assembly in October, Chiefs expressed their support for the families, including John Wells, a beloved member of the Kainai Blood Tribe. John lost his life in a tragic incident with the Calgary Police on September 17th of this year. John Wells and the Kainai Blood Tribe are pursuing John Wells' family are pursuing formal complaints against the officers involved in John's death. We lift them up and their strength today. Edith Wells, I don't know if you are here, if you can just please stand. She was with us this morning. I know I've seen her. It's the mother. Please welcome them. There is hope that things are about to change. Days ago, the Supreme Court of Canada weighed in, sending a message to provincial and federal governments that it is no longer okay to underfund First Nations policing in this country. This decision highlights the need for all governments to respect and uphold our community safety and policing, and importantly, to fund First Nations policing on an equitable basis. We expect this momentum to continue in 2025, when Indigenous police chiefs of Ontario will be in front of the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. The tribunal has granted the Assembly of First Nations request to intervene, so we will be there to support them. We lift up the chiefs across this country for your leadership and your dedication to keep our communities and families safe and protected. Growing up as a chief's daughter, I saw how many times chiefs go the extra mile to protect the First Nations that you serve. The ongoing failure of federal and provincial governments to respect First Nations jurisdiction and policing continues to contradict the spirit of reconciliation, and it is costing First Nation lives. So it's time to say once and for all that our First Nation lives matter in this country. While we have faced many challenges over the past year, we have celebrated a series of hard-fought legal battles and legal victories, reaffirming your inherent rights. We want to lift up the chiefs that have been there, taking these fights to the courts and winning. The Quebec victory on policing last week is the most recent example, but we also think of examples of like February's landmark decision ruling by the Supreme Court that affirms that First Nations jurisdiction over child welfare to your communities. With this decision, First Nations should no longer be hindered by unwilling provincial partners in the exercise of our inherent rights, laws, and jurisdiction. And there were other major victories over the past year. We think of the successful appeal of the Robinson-Huron Treaty and the Robinson-Superior Treaties. There were major victories in BC in the Yukon, in Quebec, for First Nations on mineral rights. And thinking of victories in 2024, we also think of Dewey Pruden, who comes to mind, and he's from my community. His family and his mother, Harriet, they filed that human rights complaint on behalf of her son. More than 14 years ago, in April of 2010, Harriet argued Dewey, who was just then 8 years old, was discriminated against in receiving the provincial disability services he needed. In October, 14 years later, she completed a settlement agreement that will result in First Nations kids living on reserve in Manitoba being able to receive provincial children's disability services and home care support. So I want to thank that family for never giving up for our people. There are more and more. There are more, and each of these victories send a message to provincial and federal governments that First Nations can no longer be left on the sidelines. That means that outstanding treaty rights of First Nations must be reconciled before others. So we have to remind Canada that Métis rights do not include rights over First Nations lands, territories, and resources, which has been affirmed by First Nations. First Nations are Indigenous to their traditional territories. First Nations have existed and governed these lands since time immemorial. First Nations' inherent treaty and Section 35 rights must be upheld and respected. By failing to consult First Nations on legislation on many different agreements, including the Métis, Canada has not met its legal duty to consult you and to accommodate First Nations or its obligation under the United Nations Declaration to seek First Nations free, prior, and informed consent. Unfortunately, this is not new to us. Since its founding, federal and provincial governments have divided up national resources and the rights to do business by issuing licenses for forestry, fisheries, agriculture, mining, oil, and gas, to name a few. At no time were First Nations considered as partners. Instead, poverty and the restraint of trade were centerpieces of the Indian Act. The reality is that we are a distinct people, and every millionaire in this country has made their fortune on our lands. This is why economic reconciliation has been a big part of our work in this first year. Not just because it's a moral and an ethical and legal obligation for Canada, but because it's also a strategic advantage for future generations. Fully empowering First Nations is what in this country will unlock a wealth of potential and innovation that will drive Canada's collective prosperity and economic growth. But we must start with the basics. To thrive, First Nations must have access to clean water, to quality housing, to reliable roads, to power supplies, to good schools, to high-speed internet, to access to your cell phone. That is why closing the infrastructure gap by 2030 is critically important. In April, the Assembly of First Nations, in collaboration with Indigenous Services Canada, released a report estimating that an investment of $349 billion is needed to achieve the federal government's goal of closing the infrastructure gap by 2030. Last week, the AFN, in collaboration with the Conference Board of Canada, released a second report estimating that this strategic investment will generate $635 billion in economic activity. And for each dollar that they put in, $1.82 for every dollar invested will be returned. According to the report, a $349 billion investment to close the infrastructure gap will dramatically improve Canada's GDP per capita growth, standing in the G7, and create approximately 340,000 jobs over the next 7 years. Canada is the last right now of G7 countries. This investment, if they do it, will project them to #1. So investing in our people is so important. And one more thing, 90% of those 340,000 jobs will go to non-Indigenous Canadians. It's a good investment for Canada. So the report we released last week represents the blueprint for all political parties to consider as they prepare for the election next year during their platforms, and for the current government to consider as they prepare for their next federal budget. Beyond the infrastructure gap, we need to enable First Nations ownership of major infrastructure projects on our territories. While we welcome the $5 billion First Nation loan guarantee program and the federal government announced in 2024, we welcome that, but it must be expanded to realize the potential of these nation-building opportunities. The loan guarantees should be in the range of $100 billion. Over the next decade, $560 billion of projects, primarily in the resource sector, are forecast to be launched on the traditional lands of First Nations in this country. Excuse me. Yeah. The benefit to Canada on these projects advancing is in the trillions of dollars. Excuse me. And will be the cornerstone of the economy in decades to come. Moving on to procurement, we also have to finally address the government's loose standards of First Nations identity for accessing business programs and procurement. These non-enforced standards are damaging to First Nations people and to Canadians. Properly deployed, these programs can benefit our newly emerging economies. But instead, pretendians are stealing government procurement opportunities from hardworking First Nations businesses. So I want to say simply, to be recognized for procurement, the entrepreneur or the company must be from a First Nation, and they must be known from them as one of their own, because without a connection to the community, there is no benefit to the community or this country. The other point I want to touch on is regarding economic reconciliation is education. The most effective way to sustain the success of a First Nation economy is to invest in education and skills training for our people, starting at an early age and all the way through their adult learning. As the late Justice Sinclair often said, education has gotten us into this mess, and education will get us out. Well, the last federal budget included more than $1.2 billion over the next 3 years for K-12 school improvements and access to post-secondary education. It fell drastically short of what is required to make up for generations of neglect. Looking at the news over the past year, we have watched Canadian universities and colleges face significant reduction in the number of international students on their campuses. But why aren't they filling those spaces with First Nations youth? Why are they not creating opportunities for First Nations youth coming out of government care? And why not make it more of a priority to train First Nations doctors, nurses, and health researchers? So we want to lift up all the chiefs that are working so hard to create opportunities for sustainable growth and job creation in your territories. We are inspired by your innovation, your spirit, and your commitment. Looking back over the past year and all the work being done on those critically important issues, it always seems to come back to our most precious resource, our children. Making sure children and their families have a healthy start in this life will continue to be our top priority throughout my term. As a first mother to be National Chief, I know it is one of the most important discussions and passionate discussions that we can have together, because too many First Nations children continue to be taken from their families and their communities. For far too many years, we have been fighting in the courts to fix a broken child welfare system that picked up right where residential schools left off. It has not always been like this for our children. Problems with First Nations child welfare did not start with any of us. This is something that was done to us. Since time immemorial, First Nations have kept our children healthy, balanced with the land, with our language, with our waters. It has been since residential schools, day schools, the 60s scoop, that we have seen the assault on First Nations parents, men and women, children and grandparents through the child welfare system. It's a sad situation. Thanks to our unity in this fight, we have reached a historic turning point in 2023 with what was at the time the largest compensation settlement in the history of this country. United, all of us together, we secured a $23 billion compensation agreement. Excuse me. Then in July, we reached a $47.8 billion draft agreement on long-term reform of the First Nations Child and Family Services Program with Chiefs of Ontario, Anishinaabe, Aski Nation, and Canada. I want to thank and acknowledge the courageous representative plaintiffs, Ashley Bach, Karen Ossichoff, Melissa Walterson, Noah Buffalo Jackson, Carolyn Buffalo, and Richard Jackson, as well as the Trout and Musham plaintiffs for their years of advocacy and sharing their stories. We are proud that we are proud of the work that we have completed to fulfill our mandates from chiefs. While not perfect, The draft agreement honored the courage of the children and families we have been fighting for. But it was not complete without the voices of the chiefs. So in October, chiefs came from across the country to discuss the draft agreement at a special assembly on Treaty 7 territory in Calgary. It wasn't an easy discussion. The dialogue triggered personal experience from many important perspectives, but it was a conversation I believe that we needed to have. I'm so proud of chiefs, regardless of whether or not you voted for or against the agreement, for speaking so passionately and actively participating in this entire process. The whole country watched. In the end, October's assembly sent a message loud and clear to all governments that more needs to be done to correct this historic injustice. After last month's assembly, we notified Canada of the new mandate provided by you, the chiefs. At the same time, we called on the federal government to obtain a new negotiating mandate and to get back to the table. The Assembly of First Nations Executive Committee have been meeting regularly to discuss next steps, and I want to thank them for their leadership and their guidance. One question many of us have received regularly since the Assembly is what is happening on the child welfare file. In addition to describing the actions we have been taking over the past month, we have been encouraged that chiefs everywhere seize the opportunity and to occupy this space. If you have not already, now is the time to start talking about your own laws. Now is the time to demand accountability from a broken system that rewards apprehension over prevention. Everywhere we have traveled in my first year as National Chiefs, First Nation have said that it's time to empower our families to care for our children. We hear constantly, it is time to put First Nations in charge once and for all. Chiefs, you are doing it. Thanks for your leadership. A fuse has been lit on this issue. The status quo is being examined in a new way. The right questions are starting to be asked. So we look forward to more dialogue at this week's Assembly and in First Nations across this country over this coming year and years ahead, because the status quo is not working. Looking back, traveling across this country to First Nations over the past year has been the highlight for me. Hearing the stories of First Nations and seeing the progress we are making together gives me a great deal of hope for our future. So I want to thank the chiefs and community members who welcomed me this year. First Nations leaders are leading the way on difficult discussions and shining a light on solutions because we can. We can do anything we put our minds to. Think of our history. We can be a premier like Boab Canoe of a province. We can be Supreme Court justices like Paul Favel and Michelle O'Bonswin. We can be acclaimed filmmakers like Alanis Obomsawin. We can be Stanley Cup champions like Zach Whitecloud and Brandon Montour. And we can be this country's top scorer this week, actually, in the WHL, like Carter Bear. We can be Canada's best-selling authors like Tanya Talga, Tasha Spillett, and Megan Sinclair. We can manage multi-billion-dollar projects, and we can look after our own children. And we could do whatever our hearts and minds set before us, because this fearlessness is part of who we are. First Nations are making our part in the economy, in culture, in politics, in the fight for climate change and human rights. So before concluding, I just want to talk a little bit about how First Nations can make our mark on the hot topic of Canada-US relations. Next month's transition in the White House, the US Senate and the House of Representatives have got a lot of people talking in this country, and particularly in this city, and rightfully so. Last week, the Prime Minister and the Premiers met to discuss the future of Canada's economy and our relations with the United States. They agreed to establish a Team Canada approach to the new US reality. While we support these discussions, it's important to point out that going into 2025, a Team Canada approach to US relations without First Nations at the table is not Team Canada. It is important. Thank you. It's imperative that First Nations be actively involved in these national dialogues. Our involvement is crucial, not only in terms of territorial stewardship and traditional knowledge, but also for the unique opportunities that can drive growth within our borders. And we discuss national security, border integrity, and economic transitions. It is essential to integrate the perspectives of participation of First Nations to harness these opportunities fully. So at this critical time in Canada's history, it is important that we remind federal and provincial governments of the Crown's duty to involve First Nations in all matters that can impact our rights, our livelihoods, and the interest of our people. First Nations lands hold the key to much of Canada's wealth in critical minerals and in energy resources that are pivotal to domestic prosperity and trade with the United States. This puts us at the heart of any decisions on economic development and trade. So we cannot be left out of these discussions because the issues at hand are not just about economic transactions. They're about national security, border integrity, and maintaining sovereignty, especially in the Arctic, where our presence has been a foundation of Canadian claims. Our exclusion does not change the Crown's obligation to us, nor the fact that our involvement is crucial for the sustainable and secure development of these regions. A few years ago, at the invitation of the Prime Minister, First Nations contribute significantly to the discussions leading to Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement. So we are calling upon the Prime Minister, who will be here this week, and the Premiers repeat their success and include First Nations in the dialogue now. So just to close off, as you can see, as busy as we have been in 2024, we are just getting started. In 2025, we will pay tribute to the late Justice Murray Sinclair by marking 10 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released their calls to action. We will re-invite Canadians to join us on the journey Justice Sinclair and the commissioners laid out for us in 2015. We will fight for the return of our stolen artifacts and hold government accountable for their actions. We will participate in the federal election, and I encourage all First Nations to participate because your voice and your votes matter. And the AFN will continue to push the boundaries of the law and ensure our inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights will be fully implemented and recognized in Canada. Our work is not over the next year, and it will continue to be very complex, made much more intense by the many social, economic, and cultural challenges facing our people. Chiefs, your work is unbelievably hard, and put yourselves on the line each and every day to help your communities and your families. As National Chief, it is my honor to be your advocate to governments, to corporations, to organizations, to advance your priorities. Through it all, we will be there with you, together, just as our elders and our ancestors had wanted us to be here today. We are witnessing a shift in this country, Chiefs, and you are all part of it. There is much work ahead, but by strengthening our relations, united, we can do anything together. So I'm going to close off and just say thank you so very much for listening to me this morning. Chimigwech, Gigya Minminawa. Ahay.
Merci, Chef National. Thank you so much, National Chief. Before going to the next item, I would like to formally introduce myself to you, Chiefs. Ndio aweti, haskenonia yes, when that endi yanariskwa iwaisukuta, yokwasianentaye yatsi. Bonjour tout le monde, mon nom est Véronique Picard.
Hello everyone, my name is Véronique Picard. My Wendat name means fall winds. My parents gave me this name when because when I was born, the winds were very intense. I am representative for Quebec Labrador and representative of the Youth Council.
Hi everyone, my name is Véronique Picard. My Wendat name is Hyokwasianendaye, which means autumn wind. I am co-chair of the National Youth Council, and I am also a youth representative for Quebec and Labrador region. I will now hand over the mic to my co-chair, Cedric.
Thank you, Véronique. So, good morning, bon matin tout le monde. My name is Cedric Gray-Lehoux, and I have the pleasure of being one of the 3 co-chairs here during this assembly. And it is my pleasure to be among our elders, our veterans, our Two-Spirits, our youth, our chiefs, proxies, regional chiefs, and national chief. And I want to recognize you for all the work you do and the work that's going to get done this week. A few points of housekeeping before we continue on into the rest of our agenda. Just a quick reminder, we do have the Circle of Trade, which will be just next door. It's open from 9 to about 5 o'clock this evening. As you heard Véronique, there will be some French, so we do have translation devices available in the back. Being myself also from the Quebec region, je parle français aussi, fait que vous êtes pognés avec moi.
I also speak French, so you're stuck with me.
Cousins, chiefs, proxies joining us on the Zoom platform. So as you see, we will be having them up on the sides during the assembly. As a quick reminder for those of us who are joining us on Zoom, if ever you do want to interact with the assembly, please use the raised hand function. If you're having difficulty with that, we do have staff in the room to help you. And I also want to take a few minutes to recognize, we mentioned this earlier prior to grand entry, but December 3rd is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And I just want to recognize our team, our accessibility team, and also our accessibility spokesperson, Marcia. I'm looking for Marcia, but who is here with us. And since the Vancouver Assembly, Marcia, since the Vancouver Assembly, the AFN has been trying to make its assemblies more accessible to all of our brothers, sisters, and cousins across Turtle Island. And I just want to take the time to recognize the work that you guys do. And now, to continue with our agenda, we will be now going to an honoring and a moment of silence for the late Senator Murray Sinclair. As mentioned, a great man who left us this year, and we will be having the drum group honor the memory of Mary Sinclair with a song, as well as we have a short video that if we can have the technical staff put on. Will Allen, Spirit Wolf Singers. And now I would ask for a moment of silence in honor of the late Murray Sinclair. Thank you all. I would now call up Chiefs Terrence Paul and Chief Deborah Robinson to please join us on the stage, as well as Regional Chief Andrea Paul from the Nova Scotia region for an honoring of long-serving chiefs within her region.
Well, yes, it boog. Good morning. My name is Regional Chief Andrea Paul, and I am from Pictou Land and First Nations in Nova Scotia. The other day, I was sitting with Chief Debbie Robinson and some women, and we were talking about leadership. And I said to Chief Debbie, how long have you been chief for your community? And she said, 38 years. I said, 38 years. I said, you must be the longest standing woman chief in Canada. So we did some Googling, and there is another lady that is also a long-standing chief. Chief Debbie Robinson is the longest standing chief with us here today. And I thought that it was important that we take time to acknowledge and honor our leadership for their commitment. So I wanted to give a brief overview of who they are. And Chief Debbie's hiding behind me, so I would like if she could kind of come forward a little bit so people can see her.
37, actually.
37, okay. She said 37, actually, but it's almost 38. So Chief Debbie Robinson is the elected chief for Wesohoba First Nation, which is in Yarmouth County, Nova Scotia, formerly known as Acadia First Nation. She has lived in Yarmouth in her community, I would say all your life, Chief Deb? Pretty much. And she is the second eldest child to Mi'kmaq parents, Louis and Viola Robinson. Viola Robinson was a strong advocate for our rights and also a lawyer, she still is. Oh my gosh, Mesquay. Deeply influenced by her mother's wisdom, knowledge, and political background, and her late father's tenacious ethics, honesty, kindness, and hard work, Chief Robinson has been an advocate for the Mi'kmaq from a very young age. And when I say young age, she started her political career when she was on student council. She was president and Mi'kmaq youth representative for Nova Scotia while attending junior high school. When she graduated, she knew that this was the path she wanted to take. And she then became the chief for her community to continue to support and advocate for First Nations, not only just in Nova Scotia, but across Canada. Since first being elected, Chief Robinson's community and social development have increased dramatically. She's always been a strong advocate for all band members on and off reserve. She has 5 communities that she is responsible for, so it's a lot of travel, it's a lot of visiting, and she has a lot of off reserve members that she will always give the time to go and visit. Chief Deb also, if someone is in the hospital and Chief Deb gets a call, she is at that hospital sitting with people. And she takes that time to do that because she thinks it's important that people are never alone. So she takes great pride in the fact that she has provided services to all people. Chief Robinson is also the co-lead of the governance and the children, youth, families, and gender diversity portfolios for the Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs. She's also the president of Mi'kmaq Family and Children Services. She also does a lot of work with Native women. The list goes on and on with all the things, and Chief Debbie is probably one of the most modest women I've ever met. She's not one for accolades. She's not one for putting herself out there. She's a quiet worker in the background who does what she can to support all the people that she loves and cares about. Even if she doesn't know you, she loves and cares about you. If she knows that someone is sick in your family, she will remember prayers. This woman is incredible and the kindest lady I've ever met. And I'm so glad to call her my friend. So Chief Deb, we honor you today. And we are so proud of the work that you do for all of us here across our nation of Turtle Island. So sorry, I get really emotional. Chief Terry Paul. It's Terrence Paul, but we call him Chief Terry. I call him the Godfather. So, Chief Terry Paul is the Chief of Member 2, a position he has held for the past 40 years. During that time, Chief Paul has guided his community and administration into the most efficient and economically flourishing Indigenous communities in the country. All you have to do is look up Member 2 and you're going to get all kinds of information. Chief Paul started his career with the Boston Indian Council, where he received his background training in finance and management. Returning home to Member 2, Chief Paul joined the Member 2 Band Council in the role of Economic Development Officer and progressed to the position of Band Manager before he was elected as Chief in 1984. Chief Paul has achieved many notable accomplishments in his current role as Chief and CEO of Member 2, including being named to one of Canada's highest honors. In 2017, Chief Paul was appointed to the Order of Canada. He is also an inductee of the Nova Scotia Business Hall of Fame and recipient of the Frank McKenna Leadership Award. He holds many honorary degrees from all kinds of universities. In 2019, he led his organization to be named as Canada's Best Managed Company. In January 2020, he received the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business Lifetime Achievement Award. So if you need any advice, reach out to Chief Terry and he can help you. He has been credited with tripling the land base for the Member 2 Reserve and increasing the employment rate within Member 2 to 80% in the community. In January 2021, Chief Paul led the single largest investment made by an Indigenous group in Canada with 50% acquisition of Clearwater Seafoods. Huge, huge, huge. The Member 2 motto, Welcome in the World, is undoubtedly the most accurate representation of the open and progressive Indigenous community that Member 2 has become under the leadership of Chief Terry. Chief Terry, I tell you, is both chiefs are the most accessible chiefs I've worked with. No matter what situation, I've been able to call on them. I was a chief for 12 years, and these two, with all the knowledge that they hold, all the history that they hold, all the wisdom that they hold, and the guidance that they provide, are two individuals that I've truly been so blessed to be able to work with and to be able to call on for advice, for suggestions, for the guidance. Just, you know, that's why I said he's like the Godfather. He's just been somebody, a person of trust that I knew. When I'm having a day, I know that he's someone I can call and talk it over with, and he's been always very receptive to answer my calls. I just want to acknowledge you, Chief Terry, for everything that you do for us, and I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Regional Chief, for your words. So we will now proceed to blanketing Chief Paul and Chief Robinson, after which we will call upon our drum group for a song. So Willalyog, Regional Chief Andrea Paul, Chief Terrence Paul, and Chief Deborah Robinson. You're putting a bit of pressure on the National Youth Council, so in 37 to 39 years, I'm expecting some of you up here too. I'd like to also thank the Spirit Wolf Singers for helping us this morning and honoring the late Murray Sinclair, but also two of our chiefs who have been here for many days. And now, to continue on with our agenda, I would hand it over to Adam.
Miigwech. Thank you very much, Cedric, for conducting that part of this morning's agenda. Miigwechtam gaikidian miigwech ndinedan maga bijayan gainin kabui dabnaguk nata joga bodjinkas miega gijinkanchich ngimes ego namebendo dem nego zaganing ndonji ego danshinniu ego miigwech ndinaga gipakana mwach kagimadegio ad nogum Koyakak Pakanamach, Egominak Chiha, Gagi, Kjebayam Hatch, Nanakuma Mando Gaisek, Meje, and Jamayan Gainin, Juimun Segway, it doesn't go in Nan, Nisigi Jigagawe, Mawachidiak. So again, my name is Adam Fiddler. I come from Sandy Lake, Anshinu Nation. I am Anshinne. We came up with the English term a few years ago, I guess. Started calling ourselves OG Cree, but that's not who we are as a people. We are Anshinne, we are Anshinu people. And it's an honor to be here. I acknowledge the drum. Thank you for the opening. Acknowledge the elder for the opening prayer this morning. So it's time to get into business. We have some procedural motions to get started, but before we get there, you're probably aware, you've received the notifications, AFN is modernizing its voting process. We now are starting with the electronic voting process. This will be the first assembly that we will be doing this, the new process. And we just want to take some time to make sure we understand it. We will do a test vote to make sure that we're all familiar with it. But I wanted to take a few minutes. I think we had allocated about a half hour, but I will try and make it shorter. I know we're a little bit behind already on this morning's agenda. Everyone would have received the information. There is a memo that had gone out previously. There's also a one-pager with some information on how to participate in the electronic voting. So you all have that in your packages. It's available online. We are aware this is a new process. There will be some growing pains. We may hit some, we may trip a little bit along the way, but we will get through this. And the idea that it will eventually, hopefully by the end of today, become a very efficient system in the way we do our voting. So I will not go through the entire document. There is a document, a guide on how to do the voting. But it's important to be aware that when you registered in person this morning, they would have asked for your identification. They would upload that identification just to confirm that you are who you say you are. We want to make sure that it's the appropriate people that are duly registered as chiefs and proxy representatives that will be voting. You will have gotten an email. So if you have registered just out in the hall and you are now coming into the room, you will have gotten an email. Also, if you are in the Zoom room, those of us joining, of course this is a hybrid session, those of us joining on Zoom, you also would have gotten an email. In that initial email, there is a 6-digit passcode. It's a password, 6 digits. So, as part of that email, there's also a link to click. So what you do is you either write down that passcode, or you can just copy and paste that 6-digit password. Click on the link that takes you to the platform where you will be conducting your voting. Of course, it's all individualized. It is only your site that you will access. Once you go to that site, that is where you will conduct your voting. So of course the options are, if there is a resolution on the floor or a motion, the options are that you vote for, against, or you abstain. So you click on one of those, it helps you in the process. You close your vote, you submit your vote. This is, of course, confidential. It is internal, it is encrypted, but it is kept in a database fully encrypted, so nobody knows how you voted. That is the process. Fairly straightforward. There is, as I indicated, a one-pager. It's actually a two-page guide. I don't want to get into it technically. That may confuse things, but it's fairly straightforward. If you are here, so of course, under this process, you have to have access to your email. You need a device, a phone, an iPad, a laptop. If for any reason you do not have a device with you, we have a team of staff that are standing by with blue lanyards. So can I have somebody raise their hand over here? Blue lanyards, yes. Staff are available to help you out. We have a few tablets. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but they are devices that you can use to log in and be able to cast your vote. If you have any technical issues accessing your initial email, we do have support services that are available. I have a phone number here that you can call. Please call immediately once we start this process if you are having a problem. We're hoping that it is minimal. So the phone number is 1-833-368-7123. Also on your lanyards, you should have a QR code. That QR code is personalized, it's individualized to you yourself. If you have problems through the email process, just take a picture of your QR code, hit the link, and that will help you get to your voting site. So again, everybody has an individualized site that you will be going to. Eventually, you will see a list of resolutions that are being voted on. Only one is open, one at a time. Once we call for a vote, as we normally would, the process is that we will call for the electronic voting to be opened, the polls will open, and you are able to select your choice. This applies in person for everyone that is here in person, but also those that are joining virtually on Zoom. So we are doing away with the previous online voting on Zoom. That will no longer be done. We are moving on and again modernizing the process in the room. It will not be a show of hands. It will be a vote electronically. Again, we're aware that this may take some time. It's a learning process for everyone, including ourselves. But we are comfortable that this will create a fairly efficient process of voting as we move forward. Initially, we may take some extra time to do the voting, but eventually we will shorten the time allocation. So what we will do at this point is we will have a test vote. I'm optimistic that we've explained the process in a way that hopefully is understood. Again, if you have challenges during the process, there are staff with blue lanyards. Just raise your hand, they will come up to you and help assist you. Also, we have a phone number. I don't know, we didn't prepare this, but there is a phone number. I don't know if we can get it on the screen, probably not, but the number is 1-833-368-7123. You have that information in your packages on the one pager. It's actually a two-page guide for the process. Or you can email registration@afn.ca. So that's registration@afn.ca. Send them an email. They'll help you with the voting process. I think we're ready to go. Can I go ahead? Anything I've missed? I'm looking to my colleagues, Cedric and Veronique, for any help. They can give me a nudge whenever I'm missing anything. So what we will do is we will do a test vote. We're just using a previous resolution, just a sample resolution that we will be using. Don't worry about the content. This is just a test vote. So normally the process is we'll go through either the motion or the resolution. I would call for question, and then what I will do is call for Encore to open the electronic voting. So I'm doing that now. Encore, please open the electronic voting. Chiefs and proxy representatives, go to your email. Find the email from Assembly of First Nations for the voting. Click on, open the email, copy the password, the 6-digit code, click on the link. That will take you to the polling station, I'll call it. So, it is titled the AFN Test Vote 2, and the question is, pineapple should be part of all pizza toppings. Pineapple. I can sense there's strong feeling over on to my right. So, the voting is, of course, you support, you are against, or you abstain. So we do have people coming in to vote. For us, we do see there are 270 that are registered to vote, that are either here in the room or online virtually. I see the votes coming in. We've been open for about a minute and 20 seconds. 52 have cast their votes. If you are having issues, take an opportunity right now to make sure if you can sort it through, but if you are having issues, raise your hand. Some of the staff will come and assist. They will either assist you in logging in, or if you don't have a device, some devices are available. There are limited devices that are available. For the most part, the staff will be over to my right, your left, at distribution. We also have another staff room where they are coordinating all of the voting. So if you need assistance, I did see a hand going up in the middle area here, close to microphone 2. Again, we want to take an opportunity, just take a few minutes to make sure we get this right and that you're able to vote. Okay, very good. So far, 105 votes have been cast. Again, the question is, the resolution, pineapple should be part of all pizza toppings. Please cast your vote. I do see chiefs and proxy representatives entering the room. Just to let people know, we are doing the voting. We're doing a test vote. Open your email that you would have received when you registered to come into the room. And once you, again, I'll go through the process. People are new, just coming in as well and online. The email that you received, open the email. It gives you a 6-digit passcode. It's your own personalized number, six digits. And you can either write it down and keep that, or you can cut and paste and then click on a link to go to the voting platform. Once you're in the voting platform, it gives you a series of votes. So the one that is open currently is titled AFN Test Vote Number 2. You cast your vote. You are either voting in favor, in opposition, or you are abstaining. So the polls are open. We are currently under the voting process. Those online, again, if you have any questions, if you're on Zoom, we don't see the chat box, so that is not on the record, but if you have any questions, you can email registration@afn.ca, or you can call the toll-free number 1-833-368-7123. If there's anybody without a device, you can reach out to the staff, and they will be able to assist throughout the assembly. Any more issues, any more challenges out there? Raise your hand if you need some help. I did see a hand up here earlier. Was there a hand raised back here? You need some help? You've resolved it? Okay, we've got some questions. So my colleague Cedric has just gone out to assist in the process. We want to make sure that, that we're good with this process. Again, it's a modernization of the voting process. We're modernizing. It's actually fairly exciting. It will expedite the voting process moving forward. I will explain in terms of the rules of procedure once we get there, but I will say it now that the rules of procedure that we currently follow do allow for such a process. There is, in the rules, discretion of the chairs for in-person assemblies on how the voting is conducted. That is discretionary, so this is allowed for. Of course, the rules were amended probably in the year 2000 when COVID hit and we went to virtual sessions, so there is an allowance, an accommodation for electronic voting on Zoom as well. So there is no change required in the rules of procedure, but in terms of practice, how we actually do things, this is fairly new. And again, we ask for your patience, for your support, and we're here to help. We do have staff that are available to help. So I don't see any other hands raised. I think we're doing okay. I'm going to close the polls in a few minutes. So far, we have 153 votes that have been cast out of 271. Again, blue lanyards right here if you need some help. I think we're doing okay. I'll give it about 30 more seconds. If you have any issues online, we don't see the chat box, but I'm sure there's staff online. If you can indicate your question in the chat box, and we will do our best to help you out. I see Proxy Frank just walked in. We're doing a test vote. So if you registered, you should have gotten an email on how to vote. Open up your email, get your 6-digit code, and then either cut and paste or write it down. Click the link. It takes you to the voting site. There are other details. If you need some help, of course, there's a one-pager, I keep calling it, but it's actually a 2-page guide on the voting. There are details there. If anything is unclear, again, see the staff that are wearing the blue lanyards. They're there to help. I don't want to rush through this process, but at the same time, we would like to get back to the agenda and right to business. We have the procedural motions that we need to get into, including adopting the rules and adopting the draft agenda that has been developed. So can I have the polls closed, please? The polls are now closed. We had 157 ballots cast, and I will have the results up on our screen. The question about pineapple on pizza. 10 abstained. Those opposed, 46. Those in support, 101. Now this is a test vote. So the rules of procedure require 60%, just to let you know. I won't get into that discussion here. So that is the result of the test vote. So thank you very much, chiefs and proxy representatives. We hope that that helped you out. That will be the process moving forward. And we will be doing that this assembly and future assemblies. So with that, is that for all votes? All votes, yes. So this is for all votes, including the motions and all resolutions, and any motions that are brought forward on the floor. No more raising hands. It's actually good to get some exercise sometimes, so what we might have to do is get you up and stretch and do a little dance. Now, just so that you're aware, though, there are going to be some challenges. One of the things, of course, is that the resolutions, the questions are all inputted in advance. They're there now. If we have a motion on the floor right away, it'll take us a few minutes to get the question inputted for the vote. So just so that we're aware, there will be some issues, but we will take the time to make sure we do the voting properly. So with that, it is now 10:52 Eastern. We want to get into the adoption of the rules of procedure for assemblies. So we have a motion before you, and we'll have the motion up on the screen, please. This is to adopt the rules of procedure. I don't want to spend too much time. It's fairly straightforward. It's the same rules of procedure that were used at the previous assembly. Of course, I will note two things. At the assembly last July in Montreal, there was one change made in terms of the amount of time allocated to speakers, so that is 4 minutes. 4 minutes for speakers. If there is any chief that comes back that has presented an issue that has a follow-up, their time allocation is 3 minutes. That came from the floor. That was your decision. That has been incorporated in the rules of procedure. The other thing I want to mention, of course, is there is no change required in the rules to accommodate the online voting. So there's no change required. We are able to do the electronic voting without amending the rules of procedure. So other than that, there are no significant changes in recent years, so it's fairly straightforward. So with that, I do have a motion on the floor to adopt the rules of procedure. I'm just going to read it very quickly. I don't know if we can put the text up on the screen to adopt the rules, and then I will ask for a mover and a seconder. So I don't see any text on my screen here, but basically it's to adopt the rules of procedure for this assembly, Special Chiefs Assembly in Ottawa, December 3rd to 5th, 2024. I do require a mover. Can I have a mover? Just in terms of procedure, one of the things, of course, if you can approach the microphone, state your name and your nation that you are representing. Microphone 2.
Chief John Powell, Mamalela Club First Nation.
Miigwech. Chief King, microphone 1.
Chief Wilfred King, Kiasagi, and Anishinaabe Gully First Nation. I'll second that resolution.
Miigwech. So we have a mover and seconder. Any debate on the motion? I see none. If not, I'm going to call for... Chief Wabas, you have a comment on the rules of procedure. Microphone number 1, please.
Chief Harshi Wabas, Winniman Lake First Nation. Just a point of clarity. At what time does the chairman call out, end of discussion or end of debate when there's 10 people lining up here? Like, are you following the time or just number of people debating or speaking? Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the clarification, again, when there are points of order raised or clarification for the co-chairs make that decision collectively. So it's not clearly stated in the rules of procedure. There is some discretion. We prefer to have a fulsome discussion on all resolutions, but we are also aware that I think there was a previous co-chair that used to say the clock is ticking and the time is our common enemy. We have so many resolutions, so many decisions to be made. We have to be mindful and respectful of those resolutions that are coming forward on day 2 and then day 3. And there are agenda items that we need to get to. So the intention is that we speak to resolutions, we allow for those that wish to speak, but at some point we have to call for question and move on. We try to accommodate everyone. At some point we will close the speakers list. Unfortunately, we have to do that and move along and get to the decision-making process. So it's not clearly stated in the rules of procedure. Our role is to have a good, fulsome discussion, but also be mindful of the time. If we are dealing with a resolution at the end of the day and we've hit the time allocation, and if you want to go beyond the time allocation, our role is to follow the agenda as you've passed. If you want to go beyond and extend the time, the process is to have a motion to extend the time, and it is your decision. It's the decision of the floor. So I guess the simple answer is it's not clearly articulated in the rules, but we try to accommodate and allow for most people that want to speak, or everyone that wants to speak, but being mindful that we have to move on. So I hope that answers somewhat the question. Miwe? So it is before you, the motion to accept the rules of procedure. I am going to almost ask you to raise your hands, but that's not where we're at. We are going to open the polls. Open the electronic voting. This is the motion. Please log in. Open your emails. Go back to the site. If you've left it open on your device, just go back to the same page, and there should be a motion number 1, and the voting is open on that motion. Please cast your vote. This is the motion to accept the rules of procedure. Normally it's a little bit disconcerting when you see everybody in their phones, but in this case I want everybody on their phones. Cast your vote. I don't have a specific time allocation. If it's going to take a little bit longer, we need to do that just to help go through the process and learn the process. So the numbers are going up. Those that have voted, I do see we do have good participation. A reminder, I know that chiefs and proxy representatives have just, some are just joining us in the room, and some are joining online. We are doing the electronic voting. A reminder of the process, there should be an email that you received. There is a 6-digit code that you use that's individualized, personalized. It is your code. You click on the link to the site, and it gives you the voting options. And there is only one poll that is open, and that's the motion number 1 dealing with the rules of procedure. We're actually doing pretty good. I see the numbers going up. It's getting up there. Quite a few votes have been cast. So we may not take necessarily as long as I thought. And we've already gone way over our quorum requirement, so we're doing good. But I just want to take some time, just microphone 2 while we're doing that. Microphone 2.
Chief Kelsey Jack from Coal Lake First Nation. I just want to know what happens with the data. Where is it being stored? Is it going to be used against us in the future or whatnot? That's my question.
So I'm not a technical person. I won't be able to respond myself, but I'm looking for some guidance. But what we are told is that the data is encrypted. Oh, and I see somebody chatting with you. The data is encrypted. It is stored for a period of time. I'm not sure how long it is stored, but it is encrypted, and it is stored for a period of time. Having said that, just so that you're aware, the previous process was a show of hands. So everybody knew how you voted anyway. But in this case, there is still that security factor. We need some confidentiality once it is stored. So there's no real change. That it was previously an open process. Everybody could see how everybody else voted. But in this case, once Actually, in this case, it makes it more of a confidential vote, is what is theoretically what happens. But even if, yeah, I better not get into technical scenarios. So hopefully that helps answer. Okay, you got you. Voting is doing actually really well. The polls have been open for almost 4 minutes. I was going to give it 5 minutes, but we're doing really well. We've got double the quorum requirements on the voting. So I'm going to close the polls in about 10 seconds. Again, a reminder, it's not going to take this long in the future. This is just part of our learning process. I'm learning just as you are, and it looks like we're actually doing fairly well. Chiefs and proxy representatives are still coming in. If you have challenges, raise your hand. We have staff standing by with the blue lanyards. Looks like we're doing okay. Okay, if we can have the polls closed, please. Please close the polls. And on my screen, I do have the results. Normally, I do not necessarily need to get into the results. When we do the vote here in person, we don't necessarily do a full count and give the numbers, but there is an overwhelming majority in favor of the resolution, or sorry, of the motion to adopt the rules of procedure. So the motion is carried. We will use the rules that you have just given us to follow. The other thing that I neglected to mention, and I do apologize in terms of process, you will notice that we do have, as we normally have, 2 co-chairs, speakers. We also have our youth co-chair, Veronique. So there is the 3 of us that will be the speakers for this assembly. We will be co-chairing, but we also have, we will be having a member of the Knowledge Keepers Council up here sitting with us to help facilitate, to help moderate discussions. So we have that discretion. We do have a member of the Knowledge Keepers. Generally, it will be one of the co-chairs, and they may alternate. That will be up to them, but we will probably have most of the time one of the co-chairs of the Knowledge Keepers Council, or they may designate another member of the Knowledge Keepers Council. So that will be for this assembly and potentially future assemblies moving forward. I'd like now to turn to the agenda. If I can have the agenda up on the screen, please. So I'd like to go through the agenda, the proposed agenda, and following, I will go through the process. I will ask for a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda. So we do have it up on the screen. You see it online as well. Of course, this is the Special Chiefs Assembly, December 3rd to the 5th, 2024, in the Rogers Centre here in Ottawa. It is a hybrid session, both in person and online. Starting December 3rd, this morning, we had the sunrise pipe ceremony here in the main hall. Registration opened at 7:30 a.m. We had the regional caucus sessions. The rooms have been divided for each of the regions. Of course, throughout the day, we have the Circle of Trade in the 3rd level Canada Hall from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. On the agenda, we have the opening protocols at 8:30 a.m., the opening remarks with National Chief Cindy Woodhouse Nepinak at 9:30. We had, as part of that, the moment of silence to honor the late Senator Murray Sinclair and the special honoring of 2 long-standing chiefs. We have the test vote, followed by the adoption of the rules of procedure for assemblies and the adoption of the agenda. At 11 a.m., of course, we're a little bit behind. Hopefully we can get caught up. 11 a.m., an update on panel 13. At 11:20, we have the National Youth Council, as well as a presentation of the 2SLGBTQIA+ flag. At 11:30, we have a plenary on First Nations citizenship. On the agendas that you have, we have identified names of presenters and speakers. There might be some slight changes. Some are to be confirmed, but there might be some changes to the names, but we are going through and approving the agenda topics. We'll take a break for an hour at lunch, 12 o'clock to 1. At 1 o'clock, we'll come back with a plenary on economic reconciliation. At 1:30, we will deal with the first resolution, which is an emergency resolution, ER number 1, and then we will continue on with resolutions dealing with infrastructure and economic development. We will further the agenda with resolutions 2 o'clock on citizenship, followed by lands, rights, and justice. So that's the agenda for this afternoon. We will close at 5 o'clock. Just to let you know, we have a hard stop at 5 o'clock today. Also to let you know, we have a hard stop 4 p.m. on day 3. So we will need to conclude discussions on day 3. There is some room for extending on day 2. So for tomorrow, if you so wish, and you wish to extend the day on discussions, we have that flexibility for Wednesday. Otherwise, Wednesday, day 2 starts at 7 a.m. with the sunrise pipe ceremony. The regional caucus sessions at 7:30. Registration opens at 8 a.m. Of course, a reminder, the Circle of Trade all day, 9 to 5 p.m. in the 3rd level, Room Canada Hall 3. 9 a.m. we will start with a panel on human trafficking. Again, there were some names identified in some of the agenda items that will shift. In this case, one of the names will not be part of that presentation. But we do have Paul Brandt that is currently scheduled to be part of the human trafficking presentation. 9:45, we will go to resolutions, starting with health, healing, and justice. We will continue on until 12 o'clock. We'll take a lunch break. At 1 o'clock, we have a plenary on Indigenous justice strategy and policing reform. Again, we will confirm the individuals. We do have tentative names on the agenda, but we will confirm as we move forward. At 1:30, we will get back to resolutions dealing with health, healing, and justice. At 2 o'clock, we have a plenary, an update on Jordan's Principle and long-term reform of First Nations Child and Family Services Program. We will have speakers dealing with that agenda item. At 2:30, we'll get back to resolutions, continuing on with the theme of long-term reform of First Nations Child and Family Services Program. Resolutions will shift or will continue on with children and families, and that will take us to the end of the day, 5 p.m. A reminder, day 2 is the only day we have some flexibility. The other 2 days we have a hard stop. Also a reminder in terms of rules of procedure and resolutions, the cutoff, the absolute cutoff for any late resolutions is 12 p.m. tomorrow, day 2. Of course, resolutions team needs time to review resolutions, and in any late resolutions, there's no guarantee that we will get to them during this assembly. Day 3, again, starts in a good way with the sunrise pipe ceremony right here in the meeting room. The regional caucus sessions at 7:30, 8 a.m. registration opens. The Circle of Trade takes place. At 9 a.m., we'll get started with guest speakers from the federal opposition parties, the 2 party leaders, Jagmeet Singh with the NDP and Yves-François Blanchet. I probably am not pronouncing it properly in French. Again, to be confirmed, but that is what we have on the agenda, is the opposition party leaders. Following that, 10 a.m., we have representatives from the Government of Canada. We have various ministers, the Honourable, currently on the agenda. Again, this could change. with the actual ministers, but the Honourable Minister Arif Virani, Minister of Justice, the Honourable Gary Ananda Sangari, Crown Indigenous Relations, the Honourable Patty Haidu, Indigenous Services Canada, and the Honourable Dan Vandal, Northern Affairs. Those are the names we currently have. At 11:30, we get to resolutions, starting with environment and conservation. 12 o'clock, we'll have a lunch break, reconvene with resolutions at 1 o'clock, dealing with support resolutions and any remaining resolutions that can be dealt with. And then we need to close by about 4 o'clock. So on the agenda, we have at 4 o'clock, but we may need to start the closing protocols a little earlier. We'll have the closing remarks by National Chief Cindy Woodhouse Nepinak, the closing prayer with Algonquin Elder Jane Chartrand, and then the closing ceremony with the host drum, the Spirit Wolf Singers. And of course, at 7 p.m. on Thursday is the AFN Winter Celebration. That'll be at the Rogers Centre. So that is the draft agenda as presented. I will ask for a mover and a seconder. So I see a mover at microphone 2, and then if you can approach the microphone to be the seconder. So what we'll do is I'll get a mover and a seconder first, and then any discussion. So microphone 2.
Dwayne Castano-Qua, I'm the proxy for Teslin Clinket Council. I move to accept this.
Thank you. Microphone 1.
Harley Chenji, McLeod League, the Indian Band, British Columbia. Seconder.
Miigwech, thank you. Any discussion? Did you have any discussion at microphone 2? No? You're just, okay, you're good. Any discussion? I see microphone 2.
Good morning. My name is Anna Betty Achnibanashkam, and today I am proxy for Martin Falls First Nation. I'm also a Deputy Grand Chief of Anishinaabe Nation, and I also sit on the AFN Women's Council. I respectfully want to bring some attention and also look for your support. On day 2, we have an agenda item that is entitled Human Trafficking. And we originally had 2 individuals. We had a meeting last night, the Women's Council, and we also consulted with our 2S Council on this agenda item. Throughout our homelands, we have many of our brothers and sisters who are been strong voices and advocates on addressing these matters. And we were very concerned about the 2 individuals. And we're grateful that Ms. Oneida Poilievre has changed her mind and will not be presenting. But we are going to be asking for former Chief Annie Bernard Daisley to be presenting along with Paul Brandt. And I want to acknowledge all our families from across our homelands who have been advocates and who we represent. And that at any time that we are talking about these matters, that the Women's Council be consulted and for us to have an input. So this is the amendment that we are requesting. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Deputy Grand Chief Achnibanashkam. So I've been as we indicated, going through the agenda, there are some changes to the names of the presenters. So I have been advised that that is the case, that on the agenda item dealing with human trafficking, it will be Paul Brandt as well as Annie Daisley Bernard that will be making that presentation. So thank you. Miigwech. Microphone number 1.
Oh, I thought there was a change there, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no change required. It's just internal in terms of the actual presenters. Any more comments, questions on the agenda before you? Questions been called, but I just want to look to make sure online that there's no hands that have been raised online. So questions being called. Thank you. We take that under advisement, but I am looking around the room, and so a question will be called. Encore, can you please open the electronic voting? Electronic voting is now open. Please go to your devices. And cast your vote. A reminder, we're going through a learning process, but it looks like it's going fairly smoothly. All voting is, we've modernized the voting process, and you cast your vote online. The poll is open for motion number 2 to adopt the December 2024 Special Chiefs Assembly provisional agenda. I see the votes are coming in. We'll give it a minute, a couple of minutes, and we acknowledge and thank you for helping us go through this process. Again, if you have any questions online, if you can email registrations@afn.ca. Sorry, it's not registrations. What is it? Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. There is also a number you can call. If you're in the room here, it's the blue lanyards that will help you out. Just raise your hand, and it looks like we're doing fairly well. Looking at the votes that have been cast, things are going fairly smoothly, so that's good. There's always a learning curve, sometimes some growing pains, but so far so good. I'll give it another minute, and then we will be closing the polls. Looks like it's going well. So I'll give it about 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds. Reminder, we are on Zoom. We do have chiefs and proxy representatives, official delegates on Zoom. Your voting process is the same as everyone else in person. Open up your email, use your 6-digit code that you were given, and open up your special place in the voting platform. Encore, if we can have you please close the polls. Can we have the polls closed, please? So thank you. The motion to adopt the provisional agenda has been accepted. As your co-chairs, we will endeavor to follow the agenda and remind everyone and ourselves that we have a tight time frame. We have a lot of decisions to be made, a lot of discussions throughout the 3 days, and it's important to stick to the time allocations. So, Miigwech, thank you very much. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Veronique.
Donc, on va poursuivre. So now we will be carry on with an update about the resolutions and the Group 13. Now, a little bit of a reminder. At the Assembly of First Nation, according to Resolution 13/2020, becoming a role model in ending sexual orientation and gender-based discrimination within the Assembly of First Nations, passed by the First Nations in Assembly at AFN in 2020. Now, that is the code of conduct that we must all follow at the AFN assemblies. So if you'd like a reminder, a little bit of a cheat sheet, you could also access it in your kit at page 52. I'd also like to remind you that there is a wellness room available if needed for mental health and spiritual health, and that is in room 107. And you could also go there to meet with the knowledge keepers if you'd like to consult with them.
So we will continue our day with an update on the recommendations from Panel 13 report. As a reminder, during the Assembly, Annual General Assembly of 2020, the First Nations in Assembly passed the Resolution 13-2020, which is entitled Becoming a Role Model in Ending Sexual Orientation and Gender-Based Discrimination within the Assembly of First Nations. And amongst the recommendation is the code of conduct that every participant of AFN events now have to sign. If you need a little reminder of the code of conduct, you can read it on page 52, from page 52 of the conference booklet. And I would also like to remind you that there's a mental wellness room available if you need it. It's in room 107. And there is also the Knowledge Keepers room that you can visit at any time, which is in room 100. I hence now invite AFN's Chief Executive Officer, Andrew Bisson, for the update.
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Bisson, Indigenous Cause, Chiging First Nation in Donjaba, Makwan and Dodom. My name is Andrew Bisson. I am the Chief Executive Officer at the Assembly First Nations. I'm from Chiging First Nation and Manitoulin Island, Ontario. It's with great pleasure that I join with the Assembly First Nations National Chief and the Executive Committee in welcoming you to the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly. I want to acknowledge the traditional unceded land we are gathering on and extend my gratitude to the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation for hosting us. I am grateful for this opportunity to gather in person and for the chance to reflect on the important work we undertake together this year. I should mention that I was just recently hired as Chief Executive Officer on September 30th, so it's just been a couple months, but a busy couple of months. We've had 2 Special Chiefs Assemblies in this time, and it's been a very busy and productive time for the Secretariat as we continue to advance resolutions and mandates provided to the AFN by First Nations in Assembly. I would like to thank the AFN Executive Committee for their guidance and support during my transition into this role. In October, as I mentioned, we hosted a Special Chiefs Assembly in Calgary, Alberta, focused on the long-term reform of First Nations Child and Family Services. Events like the SCAs require a great deal of effort across the Secretariat, and I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank all AFN staff for their dedication and hard work in making it a success. The December 2024 Special Chiefs Assembly is another important gathering, bringing together hundreds of chiefs, knowledge keepers, elders, youth, women, two-spirited LGBTQIA+ individuals, and other participants from coast to coast to coast to discuss, deliberate, and advance critical priorities and issues impacting our communities. These discussions are particularly significant as we look ahead to a federal election in 2025 and consider its implications for First Nations priorities. I look forward to the meaningful discussions over the coming days as it is the leadership and perspective of First Nations leadership that are essential to guiding the work of the AFN in advancing the priorities and direction set by First Nations in Assembly. Together, we will continue this important work in service of our nations. Wishing you a successful and productive Assembly and a joyful, peaceful holiday season with your families and communities. And so with that, I'll turn to John Thompson, the Vice President of Operations Administration at the Assembly First Nations, to do an update on the Panel 13 report. Miigwech.
Yes, I'm at that age. I need these spectacles. Good morning, everyone. As Andrew mentioned, my name is Jonathan Thompson. I'm the VP for Ops and Administration at the AFN. I'm a Mohawk from Akwesasne. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe this morning. Nyalagoa to the Knowledge Keeper for the opening, and greetings to all of you, chiefs, proxies, honored guests, national chief and executive. I'm going to be speaking about a resolution that was passed a while ago, something that we've been working on for a bit now, and I know we're a little bit pressed for time, so I'm going to just jump right into it. So at the 2023 Special Chiefs Assembly, the Assembly of First Nations presented an update on the implementation of the Panel 13 report, originally established by Resolution 13-2020. So it's been a few years since that resolution was passed. The resolution called for an independent review to assess and address systemic gender and sexual orientation-based discrimination within the AFN. The primary objective was to eliminate violence, including sexualized violence and bullying. I'd like to take this opportunity as well to thank the excellent work of the panel. It was a very, very well-rounded, very thorough report, and has provided us with a lot of work to do. Some of the highlights, if I will, the final report from the independent three-member panel presented at the 2023 AGA provided detailed recommendations for combating discrimination and violence within the organization. Following the panel's recommendations, the AFN formulated a comprehensive work plan to facilitate a systematic step-by-step implementation of these directives. It's a very big work plan. I think it's some 30 pages long. We also established a steering committee, which is comprised of AFN directors. Human resources, of course, is involved. And basically, it's to oversee the process. It's a lot of work, and we needed a pretty much organization-wide effort here. In fact, we even set up sub-working groups involving AFN employees, which was also established to ensure that we were inclusive and collaborative in our efforts with respect to the implementation of this report. In response to the recommendations, AFN conducted a review and updated several key policies to align with best practices and, of course, relevant legislation as well as the report. So workplace harassment and violence prevention policy, for instance, was revised. We also had to look at a workplace accommodation policy to ensure that staff with diverse needs are supported properly. We had to also look at a return to work policy. This was also coming along at the heels of the pandemic, so we had to develop a policy in terms of how we all got back to work. Training initiatives, we've implemented specialized training for managers, focusing on recognizing and addressing discrimination, promoting an inclusive workplace, and managing issues related to harassment and violence. The HR staff, the HR team, also received additional training, which included mental health support strategies, access to mental health support, and we also have a support counselor on staff, and that's something we actually implemented prior to this report, and that's been a success as well. Hey, it worked. Also, and this is something you see, I mean, a lot of what we're doing, of course, is within the AFN. It's for AFN staff, AFN employees, and the policies that we adhere to at the AFN. But the AFN, in response to the panel recommendations, also enforces a zero-tolerance policy for harassment, bullying, discrimination, and violence at all AFN events. So you see the signs, you see the code of conduct, the zero-tolerance policy. We're asking folks to sign off, and this is being done at all our events across the country. We have signage posted, as I noted, and this is also posted at the AFN or within the AFN offices. In addition, we have a designated space available at all AFN events. Here it's in room 107, should you need to speak with someone and spend some time with either our mental health support or cultural support. But I guess I'd want to make one last comment on the code of conduct in that it is very important. Because the AFN policies, as I said, apply to AFN employees. So when we're in these assemblies, it's really the code of conduct and the zero tolerance policy that is there to support your good work. Under training, we've done a number of different things. And of course, a lot of this training is mandatory. So we have workplace violence and harassment, that's mandatory, demonstrating respect at work, human rights, occupational health and safety, WHMIS, appropriate use of pronouns is also part of that. But we're also looking at, as I noted, the report was quite thorough. So right now we're working on addressing some of the other recommendations around topics such as microaggressions, unconscious bias, equity, cultural humility, trauma-informed practices, and more to ensure a respectful, inclusive, and psychologically safe workspace. We're presently working on finding an appropriate source for this training, and I think you can expect to see an RFP actually going out on some of these items I just noted prior to the end of the calendar year, I should say. One of the other recommendations we're dealing with is the recommendation to establish an independent complaints office. So while I sit back and I think about what we see in terms of volume, I have to ask myself now is, can we justify setting up something like that as a standalone entity and actually pay for it? So we're looking at that right now. But on the other hand, having been dealing with the world of HR for some time, having a separate office can provide a healthy separation between the day-to-day operations and the complaint process to lower the claims of conflict of interest, for instance, right? So having that separate entity could reduce the number of opportunities that folks would have to say, well, it was internal, it was management, it wasn't fair, or they didn't like the outcome. So it's a great recommendation, and it's one that we're certainly looking at. And to some extent, we already do this because we do have to bring in, on occasion, external legal advice as it pertains to HR, as well as investigatory capacity when required to do so. So we kind of do it now, but I think we're still struggling a little bit to find exactly how that will fit the best. Mental wellness initiatives. I think I'm behind one slide here. Mental wellness initiatives. So the AFN continues to prioritize the mental health and wellness of its employees through a variety of ongoing new initiatives. As I mentioned, we have the mental health support counselor. And one of the things we're also looking to do is to collect anonymous data, because as you go from month to month, year to year, things change, and you want to be able to sort of, check the temperature of your staff and find out where people are having issues, because we always have limited resources and we need to be able to apply them where it's needed. So we're working on that as well. And our mental health support counselor has also undergone some additional recent training with respect to trauma. Health benefits. Again, this is another area that, of course, is tightly connected to this work. So in April of 2024, the HR team participated in a National Benefit Administrator education session where discussions centered around critical topics such as mental health supports and resources available to navigate the Canadian healthcare system. Some of the key presentations were mental health, women's health, and in addition, we'll be meeting with our benefits provider this week, in fact, to address potential enhancements to the benefits plan, specifically aimed at supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. And some of these changes include increasing allotments for psychologists and psychotherapy services, expanding coverage for women's health, including fertility treatments, pregnancy-related care, and a few others, and also introducing gender affirmation coverage, which extends beyond the existing plan and could cover items such as vocal coaching, hair removal, counseling, etc. That's something that we're looking at. It's not done. And again, throughout all of this, there's a cost consideration, unfortunately, right? We also have what's referred to as the Joint Health and Safety Committee, which is comprised of HR management and staff,
and they also undergo training to ensure that with respect to items such as health, safety, and the law, how to become effective members on a joint health and safety committee, workplace hazards, workplace inspections, incident investigations, health and safety resources, and the list goes on, frankly. Another area that was recommended for review was expanding definitions of harassment and discrimination. So we have undertaken to do that, and we're actually working with an external resource on those policy enhancements. So definitions related to harassment and violence have been updated with an emphasis on ensuring that policies align with the report's recommendations, again, without being redundant, I suppose, but so there's also training and risk assessments. The report's recommendations on employee training, timing, policy review, consideration of remote workers and risk assessments. We have a number of remote workers, so we have to make sure we're taking care of them as best as we can as well, and that's another interesting challenge. The independent complaint system I noted as well. I already mentioned, I think, the workplace, the work plan and steering committee, so that work has been underway now for probably over a year, and meet on a fairly regular basis. I believe there's a meeting coming up fairly soon. I mentioned earlier funding is always an issue. So through all of this work, and the report acknowledges that as well, because none of this is necessarily free. We have mandatory training, et cetera, that we have to do to meet legislative requirements. These are all add-ons, but I absolutely see the benefit and the usefulness of it all, because we see it every day when dealing with staff here or with staff in the office. Everybody comes from different lived experiences, and it's a challenge to make sure that everyone is supported, feels safe, feels respected. So that's something that we will continue to do. We have been in discussions with the federal government on some additional funding with respect to some of this work. But we're not stopping. We're still going to move forward on all of that. But we're probably going to have to be somewhat imaginative, I guess, but we're moving forward. And the other thing, and it was mentioned earlier today with respect to our friends here providing sign language. So one of the other challenges that we've undertaken to address is, of course, being compliant with the Accessible Canada Act. So we have sign language, within our assemblies. We recently updated our website, and probably one of the biggest challenges with that was making sure it was compliant with the, what is that called again? The Accessible Canada Act. So that's ongoing, and whenever we update the website, that's just that extra step that we have to do, but it's the right thing to do, and we will continue to do so. So in conclusion, I was asked to be brief, and I think I accomplished that. But it's not a one and done deal, right? This is something that we're going to have to do on an ongoing basis. When it comes to training, updating the training, retraining, revisiting policies as events happen and things require us to be up to speed. So we'll continue to do this work. Like I say, it's not a one and done. It's a sort of an evergreen process, if you will. And I'll be here all week if anybody wants to ask me any questions off on the side there or have a chat. I'm happy to do so. Now,
thank you, John Thompson and Andrew Bissau. I will now turn over the floor to my colleague Cedric.
Merci, Véronique.
Thank you, Véronique.
An update basically on timing and scheduling. We're going to go through the presentation of the National Youth Council as well as a 2S LGBTQ QIA co-chair, after which we will probably break for lunch. We will come back with the ECDEV panel as is in the agenda, and then we will move the First Nation citizenship panel to 1:30 just after that.
after which we will go to Emergency Resolution 01. So as per the rules and procedures, there is an order of priority to the resolutions, charter resolutions, which we do not have in this assembly. We have emergency resolutions, on-time resolutions, and then late resolutions. So we have to start with Emergency Resolution 01. But before we get to lunch, I would like to invite up National Youth Council Co-Chair Isaiah Bernard for a message.
Deluise and Isaiah Bernard, Delewe, Bululek, and Luegedi. I'm Isaiah Bernard. I'm from Bululek First Nation, also known as the most beautiful Mi'kmaq nation of all time. Not my words. I'm not going to debate people on that. Forgive me, I'm a little jet lagged because I just came from Busan, South Korea, where I was given the opportunity to speak for our people at the INC5, and I hope that more of our youth will get these opportunities, and it was a tremendous opportunity. And some will say that we lost because there was no agreement passed, but I think it's better to have no agreement passed than a weak agreement. And unfortunately, the agreements that the other nations were pushing out on that during that time was weak. So I look forward to INC 5.2, where we can get a strong agreement for that includes our Indigenous knowledge, our rights, and our people, because it's clear that we need to be front and center on that stage. Although, thank you. Although INC 5.2 is in the future, I must now look to the past, and I want to talk about what happened at this past SCA in October. And I know to a lot of us, it was like it was a hard time. It was a stressful time for us, and I get it. It was a really heated debate, but we have to be better. We have to be better. Chiefs, proxies, and I emphasize the proxies because there was a lot of proxies. I know I was told not to mention that, but I just had to. It was so bad. Our youth council members, some went back to their room and cried. Some contemplated about even resigning from the youth council because the AFN space felt so unsafe for us. And to my youth council members, I apologize because it was hard. I'm shaking standing here talking for you guys, and I really don't know how to express my how I truly want to say, because I was told I can curse, but I'm not gonna. But I'm going to ask the AFN and the chairs to really enforce the code of conduct that we pass. Don't let people come up to the mic and disrespect each other. Don't let people come up to the mic and yell over each other. Don't let people disrespect you. The code, our chairs had the worst blow of it all, and it was unnecessary, unneeded. Maybe it's because one was a woman, and maybe that's it. But I want to assume the best of you guys. When I went home following that, I had kids come up to me and say, "Hey, Isaiah, I watched AFN, and is AFN always that bad?" And to them I said, "No, AFN's not that. It was just a one event. AFN, I know, we uplift each other. We make each other better. We have respectful dialogue and conversations. And that's what we must be doing in these spaces here. We can't yell at each other. We can't like point at each other. We can't act like a bunch of, I want to say a bunch of kids, but kids acted better than we did in that space." And I did write some speaking notes because I had a feeling I was going to get like this and a little choked up. And there was I don't want to single any single thing, but there's one thing that stuck out to me. There was an individual who came up to the mic, and they started speaking about where's the youth council? Where's the youth? How come they're not heard? How come they're not being listened to? But you did not come to us and ask for our opinion. You did not approach us and say, "Hey, can I speak for you?" We have a voice. We know how to use it. So to anyone who goes up to that mic and tries to speak for us, don't. Talk to us first. Please. Walalio, MSIT, be better.
To Isaiah and the National Youth Council. And I just want to take the time also to highlight, especially after the situations that happened at this past SCA, it was requested, and as co-chairs, we believe that is very important to have sitting at this table representatives from our Knowledge Keepers Council here to remind us about the ways that we have to keep ourselves and the ways we should work together. So I just want to recognize Gwen, who's here with us today. And we also have Chuck and the other members from the Knowledge Keepers Council. So I just want to recognize your presence and, again, that energy you bring to us. Our next item on the agenda, I would look towards the co-chair of the 2S LGBTQ QIA+ Council, Tyler George, to come speak and address the Assembly.
Tanse, Miogizagao, Kakiao, Nawakiam Magantik, Ketatamaskat Head Person Tyler George Nitsigasan, Neneheowen, Kakishueo Chapwes Nation Ochinya, Nanaskaman, Kateyak, Egwa, Oskayak. Hello, good day. All of my relatives, I greet you all. My name is Head Person Tyler George. I'm Cree from Kaksheweo Chapwes Nation, which is located on Treaty 4. I am grateful to the Katayak for the opening comments, the prayers this morning, as well as our youth. I thank our youth for reminding us what it's like to have respect in this assembly. And so, I'm an elected leader for my nation, Ochapwes Nation. I also currently serve as the chairperson for the Two-Spirit LGBTQIA+ National Council. Along with my co-chair, Dwayne Acoyne, and the council members who stand with me up on stage, who are made up of chiefs, councillors, and leaders of their nations. I would like to thank the Executive Council as well as the Youth Council for ensuring that the 2S LGBTQ+ Council had time on the agenda today. Last night our council had met, and I want to share and echo some words that I heard last night from KT member Gwendolyn Point, who came to share stories about how our nations had always had Two-Spirit relatives a part of our communities. And one of the comments that I want to mention is that Gwendolyn said, this is what courage looks like, as she looked at this council. This Two-Spirit Council, it is what courage looks like, and I'm proud to share, I'm so proud of this council that stands up here with me. Another comment that I want to highlight was from this morning from the opening prayer. The KT member, the elder, shared how she had lost her language. And you know, as First Nations people, it's what we continue to fight for, is that recognition and our identity, our language, our culture, and our traditions that were stolen from us. And much of that is our Two-Spirit people's place within our communities and our nations. Our nations have been through so much hurt and pain and struggles through residential schools, 60s scoop, the doctrine, and other colonial tactics. As First Nations people, we know what it's like to have our culture, identity, language stolen, and how government continues to oppress our people. While today our Two-Spirit people are still facing struggles, it's happening today. We see the conservative governments attacking our kids with harmful anti-Two-Spirit LGBTQ+ legislation. But what I want to say to this assembly today is that we as First Nations people, as Two-Spirit people, are still here. We will continue to be here and continue to push against the system that was set up to oppress our people. Today is a historical day for us and for this council. The reason I am up here today is to highlight the Two-Spirit flag that is up here with us. This is the first time the Two-Spirit flag is a part of this assembly. This flag, it represents not just our resilience as First Nations people, but our ongoing commitment as a council to advocate for the safe spaces for our Oskayak, our youth, and the next 7 generations. It's important that this assembly represent our Two-Spirit kin, our relatives. As Okamaus, as leaders of your nations, our job as leaders is to protect all of our people that live in our nations. This flag is not just for me, not for this council. This flag is not for comfortability or your comfortability. This flag represents our vulnerable Two-Spirit children. This flag is a message of sakituin, love, wakutuin, kinship, and tapwewin, truth-telling. My message to our Two-Spirit youth here that are watching and for our next generations is that you are welcomed in the Assembly of First Nations. You are represented here. We are leaders that will continue to take up space for you. So we present the Two-Spirit flag to the National Chief in the Assembly. Lastly, I want to say this. Again, if we want all of our children to be safe in this world, it has to be safe in this assembly that represents all of our people. We have to protect our Two-Spirit relatives who are continuing to go through challenges. And so with that, I say, kinanaskamaten, I'm grateful, ikase, hi hi.
So, Kalaliog
to our 2S LGBTQIA+ Council, and again for the inclusion and recognizing the AFN's work and ensuring that this flag is here. You guys are awesome, you're leaders, you're amazing, and a true inspiration for those in our communities, and going back to our traditional values of inclusion. So before we head to lunch, I just want to hand it over to my co-chair, Véronique.
Donc, avant d'aller dîner, on aimerait souligner.
So before lunch, we would like to mention that today is the International Day of Disabled People. So our coordinator for accessibility has prepared a video for us, and before presenting the video, I would like to also present the accessibility team, because if you have any particular special needs, whether it be to get around the hall or the building, the conference building, or if you need a special chair, well, you can always go see our accessibility team. And they have a yellow band around their arm, so you can go see them and ask for help for whatever it is you need. Also, I would like to also present Marcia Erland, who will come and talk to you a little bit later. Marcia, she is from the Oneida Nation, and with her husband, they've developed the sign language for the Oneida Nation. So she and her team would like to help other nations develop their own sign language as well. So we have this opportunity to have them with us. This is good, or very fortunate to have them with us. I'm going to translate it towards English because not everybody has a headset.
Today, December 3rd, is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. For the occasion, AFN's Accessibility Ambassador Marcia Ireland has prepared a special video that we will present to you in a moment. But before, we want to take a moment to introduce you to the AFN accessibility team. So if you have special needs to go around the venue, or you need a special seat, you can go and see them. They have yellow bands around their arms. So I will now introduce you to Marcia Ireland, our Accessibility Ambassador, for a tutorial of sign language. But before we will see the video, Marcia is from the Oneida Nation, and with her husband, she has developed the Oneida sign language. And she's also helping other nations that want to build a sign language in their own nation with their language. So we're very lucky to have them, to have her with Debbie Parliament and her team. So Marcia Ireland, and before, can we present the video encore? I don't know if we have it ready.
Sugoli, hello. Today we observe the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, recognized annually on December 3rd. This year's theme is amplifying the leadership of persons with disabilities for an inclusive and sustainable future. Persons with disabilities are important members of our families and communities. We are mothers, fathers, uncles, aunties, brothers, sisters, elders, seniors, community partners, and community leaders. To honor this day, we encourage our relatives to help amplify the leadership of First Nations persons with disabilities by including youth, sisters, brothers, seniors, and others with disabilities in your circles, and ensuring they have a voice in decision-making processes. We are stronger together when First Nations persons with disabilities are supported and empowered to access care, services, and benefits on an equal basis with each other. The 7th generation teachings of the Haudenosaunee peoples reminds us of the importance of building strong, supportive relationships with one another. They remind us that the decisions we make today can contribute to creating a sustainable and inclusive world for the next 7 generations. Let us carry forward these teachings and champion inclusion and accessibility in every decision we make. Together, we can ensure these values lead our work from the start and build a brighter future for all. Yonko, thank you.
Yonko. I'll just take a moment to share a few Oneida signs and some ASL signs. Sagoli, if you can do what I'm doing up here, Sagoli. In ASL, we'd say hello, hello, hi, hello. In OSL, Nagitwa. In ASL, we might say, see you later or bye. In Oneida sign, we say Yonko. Yonko. In ASL, we would say thank you. And as always, a big applause for all of you. I don't know if everyone understands why we do this. As a deaf person, I cannot hear the clapping of our hands, so we make it visual and we wave our hands. And with that, I say Yonko.
Nyawengoa, Marcia. So on that, we can go to lunch and we will come back with the plenary on economic reconciliation.